and welcome to Gabriel Speaks. This episode, we're going to be talking about what responsibility do we have to be our brother's keeper. Our brother's keeper. All three of the main religions of the pronounced religions say something about the fact that we're supposed to be our brother's keeper. And they all say it in beautiful ways. But when you look at things, when you look into each of the religions separately, they mean the same thing at base, but they don't seem to extend it beyond their own faith. We started talking about this subject long before it became this relevant to what's going on today with the withdrawal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan after 20 years. And people argue, should we be there or should we not? The important thing, one of the important things, there's dozens of important things about what's going on and what's been going on. But from my point of view, the really important thing is nobody thought to understand the ideology or the philosophy of the Middle East before going there. We as Westerners, and even as Christians, were supposed to be somehow missionaries. But everybody doesn't want what we have. Nor is it incumbent on us to force it on them. The ideology, and they're really ideologues, of the Muslims of the Middle East, and most of them, the vast majority of them, are peaceful and really do follow Islam. The word itself means submission. But the later developments in that particular religion, the more radical elements and sides, the people who have become the Taliban, the ISIS, Boko Haram, the Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda, Islamic Jihad, they are of a fundamental philosophy which only includes, nothing is important to them except their religion and their God. Nothing on earth is important to them. And they are dedicated, each one are dedicated to bringing about the universal caliphate. Everybody should submit, everybody should be part of the Islamic caliphate. That's their whole goal in life. And if you realize that, and they mean business, it's not like they're nice little missionaries going around with the Quran telling you what's in it. They mean you need to submit. And if you don't, you need to die, that's all. It's very simple. It's not complicated, and no matter what they say or do, that's what their goal is. So we cannot be their keepers. They prefer to be ours. But in a more general sense, what does it mean to be your brother's keeper? In your own family, if your brother needs money, if your brother needs help in some way, how far do you go to help him? How far do you go to give to him or to those who are in need without depleting your own resources? I'm going to ask you what you think there.
Continue.
Well, I want to know how you feel about, for example, help. We all have a duty to give.
Well,
Go.
You should be the one that talks. In our many years of marriage, I've never met anyone who was more open-handed and generous as Lynn. I mean, I could tell you stories that you would hardly believe. She was raising money, and she donated chunks of money to some kid that
I'm real uncomfortable with this.
who we never knew, who was in the hospital in Israel. He was a Muslim kid. And I never knew if it was a real story or not.
Finally, in the end, I didn't either.
But Lynn being Lynn, because someone said I needed help, she went gun-ho.
That came to me. As I said, I'm really uncomfortable with this. But that came to me as a request from a friend, a Jewish woman in Montreal, said she received something shortly after the Syrian civil war, the Arab Spring, whatever it was going on, that a young family from Syria took their child to Israel to have a heart transplant, and the person needed 6 months worth of rent or something like that. And did I know anybody? I'd rather give than ask somebody to give. I'm shy to ask somebody to give. And that's enough about that. I mean, in the end, I got chastised from most of my friends because they thought I was being scammed. But the idea is, it doesn't make any difference if you're being scammed. If you're giving from, you give something, you let it go. Just let it go. I mean.
Well, Lynn believes she's everybody's keeper.
Oh.
And
I sure didn't mean for this to go this way.
no, but it's true. And I just don't know of anybody in need. If they made an appeal to you, thank God you never had to do that yourself, but you would never hesitate.
Okay.
And I think it's an admirable quality, but you're lucky you're married to me, because our philosophy is so similar in terms of helping and giving and doing. Some husband would dig a hole in the backyard and put you in it for all that you give away.
If any of you are watching for the first time, this is a pretty unique episode. This is not the way.
No, but we
usually
had
go.
people living with us that we didn't even know. People would knock on the door, or she bumped into somebody and they needed a place to stay. I mean, my children grew up sharing their space, their bedrooms, their resources, their food with people they had no clue who they were.
Okay, and in retrospect, this is what I wanted to talk about. In retrospect, I probably put my family at risk sometimes. I probably did. And this is what I wanted you to talk about, is how do we know? Where do we cut it off? Where do we say, this is fine for us, this is fine for us, we do our part. How much is our part? I mean, in Orthodox Christian philosophy, we're supposed to sell all we have and give to the poor. I mean, we all got to be St. Francis. And that's not, obviously it's not practical. But are we called on to be practical?
Well, I think that in general, we're all called to a certain kind of, I would say, transcendence. That means to go beyond yourself in extending your hand to be a wounded healer, so to speak, to people that are in need. You never know. I mean, there's a story that this monk was weaving baskets so he would raise enough funds, because he wanted to go to Jerusalem and walk around the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and say that he found Jesus. And so he had been weaving baskets for years till he finally made enough money to go. So the day arrived when he was going to leave, and he had his walking stick, his cloak, in his little pouch of money, in a loaf of bread. There's some monks, that's all they have is bread and water. So he leaves the monastery, and he's walking, and he sees a man by the roadside who looks at him, and he says, "Holy Father, my wife died, and I have 5 children to feed. Can't you help me? I need to feed my children." So the monk responds, he says, "Well, I wish I could help you, but I've been working for 20 years weaving baskets so I could go to Jerusalem and walk around the church of the sepulchre and say that I saw Jesus." And he, was telling this story, and this man kept pleading with him. So finally the monk stopped short, and he had his cane in his hand. And he was, marking it into the dirt, so to speak. So the man said, "Holy Father, why don't you walk around me and my family 3 times and share with me what you have, and won't you see Jesus in helping me?" So the monk kept thinking about that and thinking about that, and 20 years weaving. So in the end, he walked around the man 3 times and his family, and he gave whatever he had to the man, saying that he saw the face of Jesus in those hungry faces of that little family, and he walked back into the monastery. So he felt, and this is something that we all should feel in some way, that we have to care for others even when it hurts. It's easy, it says it in the Bible, it's easy to give out of your abundance. It's more blessed to give from your lack, like the widow that gave Jesus.
The widow's mite.
The widow's mite.
You snatched that out of my head.
Like the woman that gave that. And Jesus made that example. So I think we are really our brother's keeper, in a sense that we all belong. We all share a common humanity. And you know as well as anyone how many Christians and Muslims and Jews came to our doorsteps in Montreal all those 40 years. And I don't remember that we ever refused anyone. And there's another story, and we're going to continue this, by the way.
Yeah, there'll be another.
So I want to
episode.
end with this story. During the after the First World War, there was a great famine in Syria, and there was the head of the patriarch, head of our church. His name was Gregory Haddad, and he took all of his religious crosses, chalices. He had everything melted down, and gave the money to the poor. And he opened up his home to feeding whoever came to the door. So one day, some guy came to the door and asked for help, and the nun told the man, "Oh, we're only giving to Christians." And the patriarch heard it, and he called the nun to come and see him and bring a loaf of bread. And so she came with a loaf of bread, and he looked at it and he said, "You see this piece of bread?" "Yes." "Is there a religion on this bread?" "No." "Then you give this bread to everyone who comes to the door regardless." Now go find that man and give him what he needs. And don't ever refuse anybody again. And when he died, they went around Damascus saying, God is great, and Gregory Haddad is our prophet. Everyone was touched because he felt he had a responsibility, and that for everyone that was in need. And he's considered a saint in our church. So it's a good example that in giving or in helping and doing, there ain't no religion. You just do. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, one
Amen.
God, amen. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button on your iPad, your iPhone, or whatever. Put also the subscribe button. Please subscribe. And push the notification so you'll know when we do these videos, when they come out. Thumbs up, subscribe, notification. Remember those three things. And I'd be very grateful. God bless you.